Hello, I hope you are doing well. Today we're going to visit the painting that Bob Ross did in his very first episode, A Walk in the Woods. But we're going to do it a bit differently. We're going to identify the horizon and really take advantage of that potential depth. We'll wind that path around and aim for something interesting to do with the water at the bottom. Overall, we're going to use Bob's painting as an inspiration for this subject and the colors. Now, before we get started, according to YouTube statistics, only a small percentage of people who watch my videos are actually subscribed. So if you end up liking this video, go ahead and subscribe and share it with someone who you think might benefit from these fundamentals. If you have a comment about something specific, leave a comment below and I'll do my best to address it. I'm Kendall Stump and welcome to the Stump Project. Before we get started, let's go ahead and go over some of the colors that we're going to be using. Cadmium Yellow, Alizarin Crimson, Sap Green, Yellow Ochre, Titanium White, Liquid White, and Vandyke Brown. Obviously, we're going to be taking some creative license with this painting. Bob Ross generally works in 18.5 by 20. We're a little bit different. So this is like a 12 by 24. So just a different kind of different aspect ratio of canvas. But the idea is still going to be the same. So what I want to do, I want to sketch out just a little bit of what I kind of have in mind. So, well, before I even do that, let's take a step back. I primed my canvas with liquid. This stuff right here. This is going to speed up the drying time, and this is going to be extra beneficial this time because I also put a little bit of Bob Ross's liquid white on the canvas. Just a little bit, mainly at the top and a little bit at the bottom where I want the water to be. Now, why did I do that? Well, one of the benefits of Bob Ross and or Bill Alexander's technique is they don't count on you mixing the paint on your palette, they count on you mixing your paint on the canvas. So by putting this layer of white on here, it allows you to put the color on here and get some really nice blends. Now, the downside to that is that this stuff dries super slow. I am hoping, so this is partly an experiment, I'm hoping that the liquid on here will help increase the drying time of the liquid white. Now, when you put liquid white on your canvas, super thin coat. So you can do a fingerprint test, and you can see my fingerprint in that. Anything more than that, your canvas is too wet, and you're not going to get the desired result. Okay, now with all of that said, let's sketch out a little bit of stuff here. I want to maintain my horizon line. Remember, we talked about thirds. Break your canvas into thirds, try to keep your horizon on one of the thirds, and then your focal point is going to be somewhere in the middle. Try to focus on where one of the corners here, because you break your canvas into thirds this way as well. So this would be like 1 point, 1 point, 1 point here, 1 point here. Well, let's just lightly draw it out so you kind of get a good idea. So you can kind of see that. So these areas here will be your ideal spots for focal points. I'm not sure if we're going to have a specific focal point in this. The main thing is going to be the canvas. I'm sorry. The main thing is going to be the horizon line. So everything above here is going to be sky. We'll have, this is going to go way into the distance. I don't think that we need to be limited by just what's in front of us, like what's behind that. So by taking this and pushing this back before we even decide to put in the trees, which we'll put in, we'll have a path, maybe have a path winding maybe this way. And this may change as we put things in. This is just an idea. I'm just kind of sketching this out. And then here in the foreground, we'll have Bob uses these rocks that just kind of jut up. Here, and then the rest of this is going to be water and reflection down here, and then we'll put some trees that come up, maybe even go up the canvas, maybe we'll see, and we'll try to fill in some of this with trees, and then so that we can have or maintain some kind of we can see the horizon, and we'll have like a little bit of a tree line along the horizon, and we'll be able to see the sky through it to really get an idea of what it is that we are trying to convey. So we're going to try to use some of the same colors that Bob Ross used, not all, but some. And I'm going to start off with some cadmium yellow and trying to, we'll maybe right in here, we'll start with some cadmium yellow. And we'll just put this in, even bring it down. Here we're going to paint right over some of the sketch that we did, and there's a reason for that. When I put the horizon in, I want to be able to blend in with the color of the background. So not only there, but also if we want water down here, I want some of that sky color in the water down here as well. And then now, Bob used phthalo green at this point right here. It says to kind of blend out, and then he used Prussian blue for the sky out here. Now this is more of a tonalist painting. So what I want to do is I want to come into a little bit of sap green. I'm going to start at the corner because that's where the darkest is going to be. And I didn't rinse my brush, so I still have yellow on my brush. And I'm going to bring this in. And end up mixing with my yellow. So with the darker spots on the ends, on the corners. And you can see how it's mixing with that liquid white that we've got on the canvas. So when I go into fresh paint, I'm starting on the outside of the canvas, and I'm going to work my way in because I want the outside edges to be the darkest part. I'm not worried too much about brush strokes at this point. Just blending, transitioning from this green to yellow. And that's pretty good. Now, what I want to do next, I want to rinse off my brush a little bit. Actually, I'm just going to wipe off my brush a little bit because it's got some of the green on there, and I'm going to dip into some titanium white. Just wipe it off. So I'm going to dip into a little bit of titanium white, and right here, I just want to lighten this area up just a little bit, and we'll spread it out. Where the horizon will ultimately be. Now, when we talked about value, you see that this is a lighter area than this right here. This is just hue, it's color. And I don't want that to be just hue and color. I want that to be lighter. So one of the benefits of working with palette knives is that you can just pick some up and it lays it on top of the paint. Now why am I doing this? Because when I put it on with a brush tends to move paint around. I don't necessarily want to move paint around. I want to lay this color on top of it. I want this lighter value to be seen, not necessarily blend in so much with the color that's underneath it. I do want it to blend, don't get me wrong. But I want it to stay dominant and primary. And then as we move away from the area, and you can see how that area is starting to lighten up. There's a nice, interesting sky, and a lot of this sky is going to be covered up. Now I want to think about the horizon. So we said the horizon was going to go into this third area. This is going to be somewhere. Just draw a line with my knife. Somewhere around in there. I think before I do that, I want to start getting in some of the landscape. So on my palette, I've got a little pool of linseed oil and odorless mineral spirits. And I'm going to use that to dip into my Sap Green and a little bit of the alizarin crimson. Now remember when I said that liquid white is slow drying? Well, so is alizarin crimson. So those two will really kill the drying time of your painting. So what I want to do now is I want to just start. I went to a little bit bigger brush. I want to just start laying in this horizon. I'm just punching up just a little, scrubbing into the existing color that's already there. And when I loaded my brush, I loaded the alizarin crimson on one side and I loaded Sap Green on the other. And it just helps break up the color so it becomes very interesting and spontaneous as it goes on the canvas. As you get to the edges of your canvas, if you try to go up a little bit, you don't want a lopsided horizon line. You don't want everything to look like it's falling out of your painting. I would go up on the edges, or have something that's going to lead the eye back in, perhaps. So now I'm going back in and loading up my brush with some Sap Green and some alizarin crimson. We're going to continue working down the painting. Keep in mind that we want this path out here, and we'll see how we can work that in. So we know that we want like the lay of the land to come in, and it's going to come down something like this. We're just getting color. We're just getting color on the canvas at this point, and we know that this is going to be water. So we just want some color down here for the water. We'll just blend that in with the yellow that we had on there. And the brush strokes matter. You see the brush strokes kind of will lead the eye in certain directions. And if the brush strokes are demonstrating that a land is flowing in a certain way, well, that's what the viewer is going to believe as well. Something else to consider, try to be, and I'm still doing this, I'm still learning this, trying to adapt to it. Don't keep going over, just like I'm doing now. Don't keep going over. Leave the brush strokes there, leave them broken, leave spots on the canvas. It's important to have that implied detail. I'm not too concerned with this right at the moment because I'm going to be putting we're going to be putting trees in here. This is almost like background color, but the stuff that does show through will be important. Again, this is water. Put that in, and okay, so we're going to bounce around. That way you don't get too caught up in like one certain area. You can continue to look at this as one whole piece. Before we even get back to the horizon, we're going to get there, I promise. Let's go ahead and put some color in for this road. To do that, I'm going to use a palette knife. This nice palette knife. We're going to put we're going to start in the back, and obviously in the back we've got all this other color going on. It's further in the background, like we said. So we're going to take a little bit of our yellow ochre, a little bit of Vandyke Brown to darken that up just a little bit, because the Vandyke Brown is going to be the main color that we're going to be using. And it's going to put some on my palette knife, little bead. And then I want that path, and that path may come back here somewhere, but we're going to lay some color in right here. And then as we come forward, we're going to continue to lay some. We're going to use more Vandyke Brown because it's going to be getting darker. I'm just kind of scrubbing it on as we get here closer to the water's edge, and we'll figure out what to do with this here. Maybe this becomes a beach area. Maybe we bring this a little bit of white, a little bit of Vandyke Brown. Maybe we bring this over and this becomes a little bit of a beachy area, perhaps. We'll see. We'll see how it evolves. I use my knife and I'm just scrubbing it on the canvas. I'm just mixing it in on the canvas. I'm keeping my strokes horizontal. Just keep it horizontal. Any knife marks that you get on the canvas, it'll just be added detail, and it will make sense. All right, now what I'm going to do, I know I just put paint up there, but now we're going to take a little bit of paint away. I'm going to use, I'm just going to grab a flat brush, nothing too big, and we can imagine that this here is a hill. And that's fine, but we want this path to disappear behind the hill. So with a clean brush, you just wipe some of that paint away. Now we're looking at value again. So imagine that there's sunlight unobstructed by trees at this moment. It's coming through here. I switched to a paper towel because the brush is giving me a small width of removal. I switched to a paper towel because I can get a bigger swatch of removal. Now you can turn the brush, but I like the control, the finer control. Or if I don't need the finer control, I would rather use this. And as things get closer to the viewer, the larger that shape can be. And then it just makes sense. Like, as you can see it kind of stair-stepping as we go to the back, and those pieces get skinnier and skinnier and smaller and smaller. And then you can just use some of that color on your paper towel. Just bring it. Just bring it over, blend it down into the water. Like I said, maybe this is a beach. Shoreline, we'll see, who knows. I like doing spontaneous things and just using things as inspiration. And you can find that anywhere. You just gotta look. Don't be afraid to open your eyes and just see things for what they are. In this case, we're looking at Bob Ross's painting. I like the idea of it. I think we can do a little bit more with it. And I like the colors that it has too. It's a muted painting, but at the same time it uses colors that I don't normally use, so I'm getting outside of my comfort zone to do that. Okay, so now I think we're in a spot where we can start putting in that horizon. I'm going to go into my titanium white, and I'm going to get a nice little bead on the back of my palette knife, and horizons are straight. They do not follow the lay of the land. So I'm staying here at the center of the brightest point, and I'm trying to draw a straight line all the way across. Straight level line all the way across. And I'm wiping my palette knife off in between these strokes because I'm picking up some of the alizarin crimson, you see, on my knife. And I don't necessarily want that to be spread all over the place. I want it to be controlled. And now I'm trying to blend. I just don't want a stripe of white. I want it to be lighter on the horizon. And then over here we just try to keep with the gradient. We'll just lift some of that white up just a little bit. Maybe even just add some more right up in here. The sky gets lighter as it gets closer to the horizon. I don't necessarily want this straight line that's happening right here. Let's break it up just a little bit. The clouds happen there on the horizon. That's fine, even if they're white or far away. Let's start with some of the background foliage and such. So we're going to take a natural bristle brush. This is I like to use this one. This is one of those cheap brushes that you can get from Michael's or any art supply store or artist loft. I like these brushes for texture, and they work great for trying to apply foliage and such like that. So I'm going to dip into a little bit of cad yellow and alizarin crimson. I'll load my brush up. I'm going to go right along the horizon line. And I'm just going to put in like a little line of trees way off in the background. Just kind of maybe break the highlight that we put in there. Don't worry too much about the base of the trees at this point. We'll make them sit down momentarily. Turn and twist and turn your brush. Scrub it into the background color that you've already put up there, the horizon color. That's going to mix and it's going to lighten them up, and which is what you want, because you know the further things are away from you, the more that they tend to take on the color of the environment. And in this case, the environment's it's a yellowy warm color. So we're going to count on the paint that we're putting on the canvas to mix with that environment color to kind of give it that feeling of perspective in depth. So you can you can just scoot it up, turn your brush, get thinner tree clumps, and then you just want to go all the way across. And note that the lighter that they get, you can make them smaller if you want them to go really, really way back there. Let the paint just run out on your brush, and then let this color just be a hint. And then the further that they are, let them go back, and the smaller that your strokes are, and the smaller that texture is, and it just gives the idea that they're really, really far back there. And then what I'm doing now is I'm just making those trees sit. Anything that we painted that just kind of fell below that line, just make them sit. And again, it's fresh paint on my brush, so it's going to be darker and bolder, so I'm going to start at the side. Maybe make bigger strokes. Twist and turn my brush, let it all just come off, break the horizon line. And then as I get closer to the center of the painting, a lot of that paint has come off and is mixed with the paint that's already on the canvas. So it's just going to naturally kind of get farther and farther away as we come closer to the center of the canvas, which is really going to give us that implied illusion of depth. Rub it and push the bristles right up in there. You're not worried too much about what's happening on anything other than that top line. Anything that's below that, we're not worried about that at the moment. Because we'll just take this and we'll just make them all sit down. Sit down tree. So now way off in the distance we have this beautiful line of trees. And if you want to bring some of them closer to you, you can dip back into alizarin crimson, some cad yellow, and you can just make them a little bit bigger, a little bit bolder than what's on the canvas, and then the paint that's already on the canvas. Maybe you start dipping into Sap Green a little bit. That's going to darken it up, gray it down a little bit, maybe a little bit less cad yellow. See how you start adding some depth into that. And even over here, maybe something that comes up. Now as we get into these larger bushes and trees, we're going to switch brushes here. We're going to go back to our larger brush. we're going to get some little bit more fun with that kind of stuff. And just paint over, as we apply this, just go ahead and just paint over some of the stuff that you already got there. Let it peek through. Don't paint over all of it. Let it peek through. And sit down, Mr. Tree. And I think we're going to have a tree there. Now what I'm noticing is my paint is getting a little bit too thick, meaning I ran out of some of that, some of the linseed oil, mineral spirits mixture that I had on my canvas. So I'm just going to apply a little bit more. I need this to be like a sludge when I mix my paint. I don't need it to be super runny, but I do need it to be sludge-like. You'll be able to get a lot more texture and stuff on your brush if it is. And right now we're just going for color, just getting it on the canvas. And I think I may need to go for some more sap green for the darker colors. And we'll work on this side for right now. I'll show you what I have planned for this section, and then we'll do more. We'll come into this path a little bit. So right now, we're going to just take your paper towel and just kind of wad it up a bit, and you just want to dab a little bit. What we're doing is we're picking up some of that paint. You can see that your paper towel will get saturated relatively quickly. Just find a new clean spot and just go back and start dabbing some more, dab. We're just creating texture at this point. The idea of leaves and they're rough. They're not. There's some detail, but there's not too much detail. We want a lot of implied stuff because this is going to be like the background layer of our texture. So then I got another paper towel, and I'm just going to wind this up. There's a couple ways you can do this. You can use a brush to remove some of this paint. I like this because it's a little bit more organic. I'm just going to take this piece here and I'm going to push it against the canvas like this, and then move it up. What that's going to do, it's going to allow me to create some tree trunks. And its randomness of it is what is awesome, because there's a certain amount that you can control it, and then the rest of it just kind of does what it wants to do, and that's really hard to replicate. You just dab on top of that to kind of push those in and back. Hide the base a little bit, and of course as we move forward we'll end up hiding a little bit of the base anyway, and then just kind of let that happen. You see why I wasn't too worried about the sky in the background, because it kind of gets covered up anyway. Add a little bit more sap green. We can go in here, we can just add some more paint. So we're adding this side And before, like the back side of the trees, and now we're just adding this side of the trees. Not covering up everything that was there, obviously. And then we add some more. There. And as we go along, we can, like as you finish your pieces, if you decide that, and maybe your piece is dried, and you're like, wow, I wish that was darker in some of those areas. You can always glaze later. It's not that big of a deal. So I'm just going to put in some. I want to deepen some of these areas right here. Push them back. Let those tree trunks just kind of work out a little bit better. And dab us a little bit. Let there be foliage in front. Transplant some of that paint that was there. And then as you get further down, as things get closer to you, they get darker. But the path that we put in there, let it go behind some of these trees. Let it peek through though. And if you get to the point where maybe you lost it, it's not peeking through enough, take your brush back in. If you have to dip it in your odorless mineral spirits or oil or whatever you have, clean brush. And then just touch the canvas and you can kind of see that peeking through. Right there. Right there. Adding some textures, making it look interesting. We'll be doing a little action like this. Just a little, give me a grassy effect, you see? Tap, tap, tap. You get the bristle marks all up in there. And it just adds such a nice effect. This here again, it's going to be covered up with, we're going to have some rocks jutting up there, but I want to get some color. All right, what I want to do, move on a little bit. before I get too involved. I have a really nice soft bristle brush. It's my 2-inch from the Bob Ross collection. I really like using this for water, for blending. So to make water, we have this paint up here. We're just going to come right up here where the shoreline is going to be and pull down. Make sure your brush is clean when you do this. A little bit of pressure, not too much. You just want to pull straight down. I'm not too worried about all this over here yet. We haven't gotten there. And then you're just going to take in from the edge and you're just going to blend it over. You see that? How it softened that? And even put some horizontal lines in there. Turned out really nice. That's why this brush, I haven't found a brush that quite does this on its own. It's a really nice brush. And so let's go ahead, while we're on this side, let's go ahead and add some of those rocks. So what we're going to do is we're going to use this Vandyke Brown, a little bit of a yellow ochre, and I'm going to start with the ones that are further, that are going to be behind most other things. And put that in there. Now you're like, it's dark, it's so dark. I know. And when you need that dark in order to show the light. So we'll get there, we'll fix it. Okay, so there's the base color. We're going to take some yellow ochre, some titanium white, maybe a little bit of cad yellow. Just mix it in there. You want it marbled. You don't want to mix it so it's so mixes it's a flat color. And then we're just going to softly just lay down what those highlights might be on some of those rocks. Now, when the further you get away from the center, just let that paint empty off of your palette knife and let it get darker and darker and darker as we get to the edge. I wanted those shadow areas to be a little bit darker, so we just do it. I'm pulling in the opposite direction that I laid so instead of going this way, I'm pulling this way. And then I'm going to reflect that in the water. It doesn't have to be exact. I'm just going to put some color information down here. So a little bit of dark, a little bit of dark, a little bit of dark. Make sure it's in. I'm going to pull this down, and then I'm going to do the same process that I did before. So you have to make sure that you have enough dark on there in order to do that. So something like that. Wipe it off my brush, And then we'll come right up here to the shoreline and pull down. Wipe off my brush, come in here to the shoreline and pull down. Like that. And then starting from the edge, just lightly come over. All right. Now we're going to do that to this side. Okay, there's that. Yeah, don't be afraid. Go up into the sky. Don't be afraid. Paint over some of the stuff that's already got there. Let some of that peek through for sure. Remember, as you get closer, things are going to get darker. And then before we get too far, let's go ahead and texture this so we can work on top of it. We can work in layers and take a paper towel. We're just going to dab. Now in this specific instance, dabbing those ones that are far away is going to make them lighten and mix and blend with the paint that's on the canvas, which is really going to push them back, and that's awesome. It's really what you want. As you move closer, make sure you change out your paper towel area, because you want to be able to pull some of that paint up and then transplant it in other places in order to give the idea that there's leaves there. You can use this technique also to demonstrate highlights and such as well. By removing paint more from one side of some foliage than the other, you can demonstrate where the light source is. For example, if I take more paint off of this side of the tree, it just looks like it's a little more illuminated. It's not to say you should forget the other side of the tree. Don't. You need to try to maintain some consistency, but perhaps it's just, you just don't do as much. So you can still imply that it's there. There. All right, and now we're going to put in the tree trunks. And then hide them. Again, this would be the back side. The first layer would be like the back side of the trees, and then this we just put in as the middle of the tree. And now we'll put in some more color, and it will be this side of the tree. And we sit them all down. Put in some shrubbery, and as we get closer, will darken the paint. Color in the water. Okay, now we'll put some of these rocks in here. And scraping off some of the paint as I'm doing this kind of helps me visualize where some of these things are. And I wipe off my paint and flatten it down, and then scrape off, so I have a little bit of a bead on my palette knife. Now this is similar to how you might make a mountain using Bob Ross's technique, but I'm pressing a little bit harder. So the technique that I'm doing, I'm going to put my knife on here, and I'm going to angle it at the edge of where I want the rock to be, and then I'm going to twist my knife as I come down in order to widen that stroke. So here, just touch, and then lightly, no pressure, just turning my knife and bringing it down. Wipe off my knife, get a bead on my knife. And then as it gets further away, we're going to let the paint be darker and darker. What I mean by that is I'm picking up some of the paint from the canvas, and then I'm just mixing it with that yellow ochre that I had on my palette already, so it's just consistently getting darker. So I'm just using that as we come closer to the edge of the canvas, so that the brightest part is going to be towards the center, because the light source is appearing to be over in this direction here. That's why we have a little bit of light on this side and then a little bit of light on this side. So now we'll put in the shadows. Yeah, following that edge, we'll just pull in the opposite direction. Flatten it out, put a bead. Okay, clean your brush, find your shoreline, a little bit of pressure, pull down, pull down. And then swipe. There we go. And the more you swipe, or the more you go left to right, the more you're going to blend it out. So just be careful. Only do what you intend to do. All right, now I want to put a little bit more highlight on some of those rocks. I'm going to go into my Cad Yellow, Yellow Ochre, Titanium White, pull it out flat, cut off a bead. And I'm not going to go over everything. I'm just going to, right on the edge, and then just kiss it. Only where you think makes sense for the light to hit. Keeping in mind that the further we get to the edge, the less and less I want that light to hit. I don't want things evenly lit. Let it fall off. So again, on this side, this would be the one that's most heavily hit. So we'll put it on there. And the next one, maybe it's just towards the top. Stick some twigs. We can use that same highlight. Maybe we imagine where it might hit on here. This here in the front is a little bit too much for me. I want to darken some of that up. So let's go back in my Vandyke Brown. We'll just get a bead on there. Leave some of that highlight, and we'll just put some dark on top of it. Some of it's good. I like it, and plus, the closer you get to the foreground, the more contrasting things are going to be. Further away you get, the more things kind of muddle together. And if you want to, you can make this path as wide or as narrow as you like. So remember, don't cover up everything that you put in the background. Maybe just cover up stuff you don't like. And just make things interesting. Try to use darker colors the closer you get to the foreground. can bring some of that here into the water. Pull down, pull straight down. On your shoreline, pull straight down. Wipe off your brush. Pull into the center. Just blend it. There you go. Now just a couple more things we can do. Just mainly hitting highlights here and there. And there's something else that I could have done, I didn't do. I'll need to put a water line in yet. But if you take your towel and you twist that into a nice taper like this, you can put in, just whip your canvas. You can put in some twigs, and I would have done this before, put in the rocks, but we can go back in and fix that. It's not that big of a deal. You can get all kinds of shrubbery lines and all that kinds of stuff in there. So, but like I said, maybe we want some of those. I wanted to show you how to do that before it got away from me. Then you just cover up what you don't want. Yeah, I think that's probably one of those happy accidents, because it gave me an opportunity to blend some of this with the shadow a little bit more and break it up, make it look a little bit more organic. I like that. I like how that turned out. That's pretty good. Okay, and then of course any of the stuff that I've done here, it happened in the water that we don't want to keep. Just blend that out. Easy, easy. Okay, last thing we want to do, I'm going to take our palette knife. We're going to dive into our liquid white. We have a little bit on our canvas. You want to get a bead, keep your palette knife level, and scratch in just a little bit. Scratch in just a little bit of a water line. And let this go wherever you need it to go. As long as you keep your blade level, you'll be in good shape. Now again, I'm not trying to recreate Bob Ross's work. I'm simply using this as an inspiration to create something new, using some of the same colors that he did, some of the same techniques, and just seeing how it all comes together. Completely spontaneous. wiping off my knife, and then with a clean brush, you just blend it out. Keep as much or as little as you wanted to. It puts a little sheen on the water. There. And I think for the most part I like this. It turned out pretty well. We ended up having what looks like maybe a hill that comes up here to the side. A little bit of texture. Maybe we revisit this with a little bit of glaze. I think it might be a good idea, maybe to accentuate some of the shadows and to darken some of this stuff along the edges. That could be fun. We may do that next time. Maybe we revisit the sky. It feels a little bit bland to me. I'll sit on it. I'll sit on it for a week, and we'll see where it goes. I kind of feel that there's some areas that maybe are fighting with the value a little bit. And we'll see where it goes. But I do like it. I like the colors. I think it's a fairly organic looking piece. Yeah, I'll sit on it for a little while, and we'll see what we do. We may change some of the shapes and sizes through here. We may add some foliage right here to kind of cover. I feel like this is a little bit too monotonous right through here. May cover some of that up to make it feel a little bit more natural. We'll see. But overall, I think it's turned out to be a pretty successful attempt. Okay, I hope you enjoyed everything we went over and that you use this information to create something awesome in your own style. You can find inspiration anywhere. Don't be afraid to look. Remember to like this video, subscribe to this channel, and check out my other videos. Leave a comment if you have a question or some feedback, or you want to see something specific. And I'll see you next time.